Welcome to the Hustlers podcast. I'm Desai and I bring you stories of immigrant entrepreneurs so that you and I can learn from them if you are thinking of starting something on your own or just a side hustle to supplement your income. Because let's face it, jobs these days are as risky as businesses. Let's dive in. Music, dance, cricket, athletics. You may have had these hobbies growing up, but never dreamed of turning that into your career. In my 11th episode, I sit down with Miss Priya, who turned her passion for dance into a full blown career. But it wasn't as easy as it sounds. We sit down and get into the nitty gritty, the challenges, the financial struggles, the journey. Tune in, this conversation is a gold mine if you're looking to understand what are the ups and downs of having a hobby or passion as a career.
Hi Priya, thank you for joining me on the Hustlers podcast and being my guest. Can you introduce yourself for our audience?
Yes. Hi, Jay. Thanks for having me. Thanks for giving this opportunity to share about my journey. My name is Priya, and I'm the founder of Dance with Miss Priya, which is my Chicago based dance company that is focused on teaching various forms of Indian dances to children specifically. I also offer different services like school programs and private lessons and wedding performances, parties and events, and more. And yeah, I'm based in Chicago.
Okay. And when did you get into dance?
Oh, okay. So we have to go way back because I have been dancing since childhood. I grew up in a small town called Pilani in Rajasthan, and it was a very diverse campus, like an educational hub. And there were a lot of opportunities where I would go in and watch performances as a kid. And my parents still tell me that I would just get up from the audience and I would start copying the moves from that were going on stage by the adults. And so my mom, I think my parents saw that early. I was maybe 3 or 4 years old. And they made me join Bharatanatyam class, which is, as a lot of people might know, it's a South Indian classical dance form. So I learned that for a good 10 years. I think I just had a natural interest in movement or dance. And I had that really nurturing environment where I got to learn a lot from great teachers throughout school, almost 10 years. At age 10, I completed my Arangetram.
Okay.
And then there was a little break with like exams, school exams, and all of that. But then dance was always part of my life, no matter what phase I was in. Through school, through college, events, and everything, I was part of the dance team in my university. And then even after I started my first job, I would make time on the weekends. Like dance was priority.
Okay.
The weekends would be spent going and taking classes. I lived in Bangalore for a few years doing my job, and I joined Shamak Davar's classes. That was my first sort of formal class after the Bharatanatyam training. And so there I explored more Bollywood and jazz and more of the fusion styles. And then after I moved to Chicago, I still continued my dance journey. I took classes in the city. That was one way of keeping myself busy and active and fit in my early few months in the city.
I know you took classes and all, but you also had the normal education that a lot of people have, right? Which is regular school and college. Were you studying Bharatanatyam or practicing Bharatanatyam and other dance forms with a view that you would make a career out of it? Was that always the...
Oh no, never. Dance was always growing up was always like, oh, this is something you do as a hobby
Yeah.
and you enjoy it. You do as much as you want. Make sure you study good. I mean, you know how it is growing up in
Right.
India, and like that's how it was. Like especially I was surrounded by engineers and doctors and scientists. And so I just wanted
Yeah.
to be like everybody else, get good degree. So I have a double master's in general arts, like a humanities program, and finance. So very different, kind of like a different combination. And that kind of led me to my first job as an analyst in the banking industry, actually. And it was just one of those things, oh, like everybody was looking for a job and you join in and you first job, you don't think too much. But I think within the first year itself, I realized it was a very technical job, a lot of SAS coding, a lot of Excel sheets all around. Within the first year, I realized that I was not made for like a desk job, or rather like a 9 to 5 traditional job. And at that time, I was 21, 22, and I quit my job.
Yeah.
Saying that this is not for me and I don't know what it is that I want to do, but this is not it. So some people said, oh, that's a really impulsive decision. Like, how can you just quit and whatever? But then there were people who said, that's really brave of you.
So
So I did that and explored a few different things. It didn't pan out, nothing worked out. But then simultaneously, that same year, a few years later, I got married and moved to the US, to Chicago. And I think that led me to this whole discovery of dance, or and like unconventional
mm,
path as a career option. But no, growing up, I never thought I would be a dancer or a teacher, or I mean, a dance teacher, or let alone like entrepreneurship, business, owning a business. I don't have any business owners,
mm,
entrepreneurs in my
mm.
family. So, but I do come from a family of educators. My parents are both professors. So I think I get some of that from them. But yeah, dance was always now as a hobby, you pursue it, you enjoy
Interesting.
it, but never as a career. That only happened in the last decade when I moved to the US.
Interesting. And can you tell how you got into dancing in Chicago? Like, how did you become a teacher, basically?
Sure. So I moved in 2012 December. It was winter, 1 week before
Mhm.
Christmas. It was all that exciting phase. It's like holiday season, festive lights, and all of that. So I was exploring the city. I'm looking to make new friends. I was newly married, so there was a lot of like excitement overall. So I and then dance, as like I said, I wanted to continue that, to find also my community, to find friends, because initially you have a hard time making friends. Where do you find people? And was on an H4
Okay.
visa, and I'm still am, and I didn't have an EAD, so I couldn't work. So for me, it was all about how do I keep myself busy, and I started exploring some dance classes. And I took a Bollywood dance class. It was a fitness class. So that is something I'd never done. I'd heard of Zumba and things like that, but I'd not never taken a dance fitness class. So I go in there. It's all people, a lot of Indian faces, and but there were also other people, and it was just like fun way to stay active and make friends. And so that's how the dancing started. And then the one of the instructors, I think, noticed me and then told the founder about me. And then I had a conversation with her. She called me and she said, oh, you're a really good dancer, do you want to teach? I was like, oh, teaching, I mean, I had never thought of that, never ever. And then it was a kids instructor position. So I thought, okay, what's the worst thing that can happen? I can try it out for a few months or something. And then if it doesn't work out, I'll not do it again. Anyway, I couldn't work at that time. So I volunteered. I attended some events and classes with the company. I assisted, even if it was just holding a phone, taking a video, just observed a lot. And I learned a lot from that. So I got a lot of opportunities to be at these Bollywood dance events and festivals, celebrations. And then eventually I started going into kids classes, and I was like, let me see what this is like. At the same, so this is all 2013, happening later in 2013. And at the same time, the founder was having a baby, so she couldn't teach her the classes that she was teaching. So it just, the opportunity was there, and I think I said yes to every opportunity that I got. That was one thing that I think I'm very proud of, that even if it was scary or I had some self doubt, I said, yes, I'm going to try it. I'm going to give it a shot. So I started teaching some of her classes. And it was just all a lot of self learning and a lot of
Mm.
observing how the kids are responding to my teaching. It was hard in the beginning, but then I practiced, and then slowly I got better and I started getting more confident. So that's how it started. I want to say 2014 is when officially I like started doing some classes. And yeah.
Interesting. And how long did you like work there?
I mean, initially, like I was saying, that I was still waiting for my EAD. So once I got my EAD, that was 2015. Thanks to Obama administration, and mid 2015, I think, is when the change happened. And then early 2016 is when I officially then actually joined the company full time. But I had made up my mind before that, that this is something I want to do. I'm not going to look for a traditional job and be unhappy doing it, because I'd already tried that in back in India. I even tried in the US, and initially I just applied to some companies. I gave my GRE and all of that. I thought getting a master's here is going to help me figure out what I want to do and then get into the workforce here. But I always went back to dance and listened to my heart. And I was like, no, you know what? I'm going to do this. So then 2015 16 through 2019, I worked with the company like full time, and I actually managed the whole kids program. I ran the class, I taught classes. I also was in charge of hiring and training people. I everything, customer service, social media, marketing, content creation, everything.
So you learned a lot of
Sales.
things. You learned a lot of things there on the job.
I learned a lot. Yeah, exactly. A lot of it was also just self-taught, like especially the teaching part. There was no formal training program. So teaching was something very new. Like I knew how to dance. I think I was a strong dancer when I came in here. But then just like getting the basics of teaching and everything, it was all trial and error. And I still remember the very first class I was in a Montessori school, and kids were 3 and 4, 2, 3, 4 year old kids, and I was in there with 50, 10 to 12 kids of that age group. And because I didn't know how to manage kids, I knew how to dance and I could give them instructions, but they have to listen to you. So how do you connect with the kids? I had all the kids standing up on tables and chairs and jumping off the
Wow.
tables.
Okay.
And I just wanted to try and run out of the
Okay.
room. But then I stayed, I tried a few different things, and then I assessed what went wrong and what I could do better. I also watched a lot of videos. I went into, whenever I was in educational settings, especially these schools, I would watch the teachers there and try to see how they are interacting. So I noticed how they were patient, how the way you talk to kids, your tone, and everything, that's as important as your dancing skills, as sometimes even more. So I learned all of that just like on my own, just observing, because I was just by myself. And there was no like actual like formal training and all of that. Right now, I mean, of course there are so many. I've also developed a whole training program for whoever I hire. They'll be able to, like, based on all my experience, I'll be able to teach them, so they don't have to figure it out on their own. But yes, lots of opportunities I got in that job and lots of practice. So I was able to be confident and then eventually start my business in
So
2021.
do you think because those kids were so small, you could do it,
Uh-huh.
or did that give you confidence? Okay, they're very small to judge me or not obey me.
Oh, they'll tell you. They'll tell you if they're not into it. You'll see it in their behavior. And teaching younger kids is no joke.
Okay.
They're a handful. I mean, toddlers. I mean, are you kidding? They literally can perceive so much. If you are not prepared and controlled, they can see and they can walk all over you. So no, it's harder to teach
Okay.
kids. It's easier, much easier to teach
Or
older kids and adults,
interesting.
because they have the attention
Yeah.
span and they can listen.
So this was until you taught there for 3 years with this founder that you worked with.
Yeah, it was, yeah, not just teaching, but also actually running the whole program. I was doing behind all the operations and organizing events, recitals, costume management, everything. So yes, I did that till 2019, and I actually got laid off at the end of
Okay.
2019. And then the pandemic happened. So when it happened, I thought that was actually a blessing in disguise. And that was my time to look at everything that I had gained experience with, and I had added so much of my own, my value to what I was doing as well in the company, that I had the confidence that maybe I could do
Right.
this on my own as well.
But why? Like,
Um,
what went wrong? Like, why? Layoff is a very tech term or corporate job term.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just for cost reasons. That's what the founder, they told me, that this is having someone full time was also a lot. And being in the dance industry, there were like lots of ups and downs with classes. So it wasn't feasible to have someone full time. I was given an offer to stay part time and maybe just teach some classes and not have a full time position. They were trying to cut down on the cost, like the salary and everything, as much as she could and take on some of the stuff on her own.
Okay.
But then that was not something that I think would have worked for me, because then I would be stuck to just teaching and not be able to do all the creative stuff behind the scenes. And I enjoyed my whole job so
Wow.
much. I wanted the freedom to be able to do whatever I wanted to do.
You were
So
running the show there, almost, right?
yeah, exactly. And then that is the time when Miss Priya had become my
Right.
identity. So as an instructor, as a teacher, they call you like by your name, like Miss Priya, right? So that's how that became my identity. And it was like I was completely immersed, and that was more than a job. That was a good amount of 5 years, I'd say.
Were you surprised by that decision when that happened?
Yeah, of course, when something like that happens, you're just like, okay, what just happened and what went wrong and everything. But then I came to terms with it. I think it was eventually, the path to for my growth, what would have been anyway,
Mm,
is what I'm thinking now. I wasn't able to think like this then. But then I took a step back and I assessed everything and I said, you know what? Maybe this is for the
mm,
best. And I will be able to. Initially, I wasn't thinking about starting my own thing. I was thinking, what do I do now? But then the pandemic happened, so there was a little break. Like there were no other jobs. I didn't think about going to a traditional job again. So this became like a natural path for me after I planned it out and I thought, okay, you know what? I'm going to maybe start with some online classes. But yes, initially it was like a shock. Obviously, everybody goes through that.
were you scared because now you lost that job? And then the pandemic
Yes,
happened where everything shut down. Now you couldn't go in and teach in
of
person.
course.
What was that? What was
Yes.
that phase like for you? What were you thinking? What's going to happen next?
Yeah, it was a little bit uncomfortable, uncertain. Of course, I was scared. But, again, I haven't mentioned this before, but like my husband has been my like the biggest supporter from day one since I moved. And he'd actually spent many years in the US before me. So he onboarded me. He spent 10 years before we got married in the US. So he was not brand
Okay.
new. So I think he like really supported me during that time. And he said, you know what? I got you. I'm supporting you, of course, the emotional and the financial support. So I was able to take that break and not worry so much about, oh, I've lost a job now. How do I survive here? So yeah, I mean, we made it work that way, and then I took that time to figure out my next plan.
Mm,
Right. So yes, we all go through those times, but then in that time, you have to be able to adapt and
yeah.
see where you can take
So then how did you start? What happened next? Once the pandemic hit, how long since, quit this or got laid off here and then you started
this.
your
Right.
own?
So for the first 6 months, almost.
Actually, sorry.
Sorry.
So why not look for another job? Was that not an option for you?
Y- I could, I mean, I did think of it, but then it would again be something. Being in the arts industry, being in the dance arts industry, it's hard. I mean, you have to first of all find the right fit. There are not that many Bollywood dance or Indian dance companies, and pandemic, like who's going to take on another
Mm,
salaried employee? Like
mm,
businesses were struggling to
right.
survive. I mean, you can only imagine a small arts company. So I think this would have happened regardless, like the layoff or whatever. It would have happened, I think, if not in end of 2019, it would have happened in Feb or March. So I think it was just best for me to focus on just looking at my journey and see what I have grown, how much I've grown so far, and use all of the experience I had gained and to do my own thing. So initially, I did not plan it out in a way that I was going to have a company and classes. People are not stepping out of their homes and forget like going into group classes, right? So I was just creating some content from home because I had already done so much content teaching kids before that I was really interested in creating more content online, and that was a way for me to beat the stress
Mm,
and kind of stay positive. So I was recording videos for kids. So I have tutorials from back in 2020, 2021 on my YouTube. And what I found was on YouTube there's a lot of content,
mm,
dance content obviously, but there wasn't a lot of content for kids specifically that's easy enough or digestible
mm.
for different age groups,
Okay.
or a fun way for kids to learn dances and enjoy it. So I started creating these tutorials. I went to a parking lot next to our building. That's where I recorded my very first video. It's like really bad resolution, but then I learned from that. And then it was like in my building, in my apartment hallway. We had very limited space in an apartment. So then, but I think that's how it started. I started posting my YouTube videos, and I would share them on Instagram. And Instagram was something I never used before 2020. Like 2020 is when I started posting. I didn't realize the power of the stool until then. And it would be just like, oh, I recorded
Mm,
a video. If you're home, stuck at home, follow this and smile and
mm,
enjoy. And it was more like just fun thing. I wasn't looking, I was just, but what didn't realize I was doing was I was showcasing my
mm,
teaching style.
mm.
And people were noticing that as slowly like things went on. And then I started doing some outdoor classes in summer in Chicago.
But since this part where you realized you started recording videos,
Hmm.
why did you start doing that? Was it as an outlet for you to de-stress, or what were you trying to figure out?
I felt that I had just abruptly been stopped or from teaching, and it was taken away from me.
Mm.
And I wanted to be able to continue the interaction, continue the connection. And in my mind, I had this thing that if I stop and I come back after 6 months, suddenly, if you disappear and come back, people are not going to notice me.
Okay.
I had that fear initially. So, good way for me to keep myself active and show my face, like show my teaching style, my dance, my talent, was to use social media, because people were on devices, people were using screen time for kids, right, at home, to keep them engaged.
Yeah.
So I started doing that. I mean, nothing could be monetized. I was making $0 and like negative, actually, because I was putting in so much time, energy, editing. I was getting all these outfits to wear for the videos, and you can't monetize YouTube content because it's
Yeah.
Bollywood music copyright. So anyway, but yeah, that was the thing that I wanted to, and it gave me a lot of joy to just do it without even audience. I imagined the kids in front of me like I was teaching them.
Mm.
And I was getting like comments and requests for virtual lessons,
Mm.
like right away from April or May. And that's when I discovered this online teaching platform called OutSchool, and I started teaching there.
So you started posting videos. That was the.
Right.
But did you have a plan of, I want to earn money out of this ultimately? Was that also back of your mind?
With YouTube, not really, because I knew like you have to hit a certain number of views and all of that. And even with that, it's tricky, but it was just a way for me to again, like I said, showcase my talent and my teaching style, which I think to this date, like people watch some of the videos and use them for their kids' school performances or weddings or something. And then they reach out to me, say, oh, are you doing classes? I've actually got some clients who are in Chicago from, like, they saw the video and then now 2 years later they're in my class.
Okay.
Yeah, but back then, like almost 4 years ago, right, 2020 April, is I wasn't thinking about YouTube as a
Maybe you knew there was some path, but you were not sure either.
I wasn't sure either. Yeah.
Interesting. So then, so you started with this thing called OutSchool, you mentioned?
Yeah, it's an online marketplace for classes. I discovered them through LinkedIn.
Okay.
And then it was just like, oh, our school is looking for teachers, and you can teach your own thing. Like, you don't have to be I mean, people teach various subjects. There are people teaching math, science, coding, cooking, dance, music, everything. So I got on there. I sent a video of me, and then you just go through some initial process, and then they bring you on board, and they handle all the it's like Zoom integration is there, and then they handle all the marketing and registrations, and you just basically show up and teach online. And so it's like thousands of parents looking for classes for kids, and they come and find you. There's tons of competition, but nobody was doing a Bollywood dance class, so I was the only one. So that, I think, timing worked out great. People looking for Indian dance, and then also looking to keep the culture alive, right? So it's more than what I do, is actually more than just a class where you come in and learn dance and you perform. It's a vehicle to explore and connect kids to Indian culture if they're from that background. But if you're not from an Indian or South Asian background, even, it's a way for you to explore another culture, because the music we use is so infectious and upbeat, right? Bollywood music. And it just was like, it picked up at that time. And I was teaching at one point, I think 100 students a week. I was teaching every day. That's all I was doing. I just explored it, and I was like, let me see what this is. I mean, I didn't think of it much then. And then I was like, oh, like this would be something that could work out. And then it was a whole different thing, figuring out online interaction, because that is something I'd never done.
Yeah.
So here I had this another new thing, because I knew how to teach, but then online, how do you keep the kids engaged? I had to really come up with a proper online lesson plan, because what you do in person class would not work. You can't hold a child's hand and make a circle with them, or give them a prop to hold and dance with, or here you're just relying on your voice, and a lot of be extra animated. So yeah, it was initially took a lot of practice, and then but slowly as it picked up, and for a whole year, I think almost till 2022 winter, I did that. But also in parallel, I started some in-person classes in Chicago in 2021.
And how did you figure out the in-person piece? Because now you don't have your talk about the studio and all that.
Yeah. In terms of studio, even now, I don't own a physical space. So I rent from dance studios in the city, and I also teach in school,
Mm.
like on school premises. So I have two different studios that I rent from. And that's something I decided right away because I don't want to get into the whole owning a space. There are so
Yeah.
many risks involved with that. Of course, that's something people do. But then for me, it was like I'll go into different neighborhoods. Chicago has so many neighborhoods. And so I would be able to expand by traveling to these
Okay.
different neighborhoods.
But
So I
so online you found this platform Outschool, but
uh-huh.
offline, how did you go about finding students?
So through, I think through social media and just people who had been parents who had been following me for a few years through some previous classes that I was teaching, right? There were people who were following me. And so I didn't like really doom in the sense I posted in my social, I posted my social media and say, hey, I'm going to start some classes in Chicago. And then I posted on social media and I just had people reach out because I had also been posting and been active, which is where this whole YouTube thing came in really useful because I was sharing
Right.
my videos on YouTube and Instagram, right? There were only 4 or 5 people who came for my class. And initially it was just like, oh, can I just break even? Because I'm paying the studio one this much per hour. It's an hourly rental. Let's say I'm paying whatever, $50. Can I charge $20 per student? And that way
Mm.
I'll just cover the cost of the class and I'll get started that way. So it was important to start small like that way.
Mm.
And then those friends, they told like 10 other people, and then
So you
the
just,
next thing I was,
yeah, you just posted on social media without, you posted saying I'm taking classes, but you did not have students yet. Is that how you approached this?
yeah, I had the confidence because I had some teaching experience, right? And I had a few connections over the years. Also, I've been living in
Mm.
Chicago for at this point 9 years, right? So I naturally had even friends who have kids. A lot of my friends have kids now, so they just had to be above three and above. So that's actually a good point. I actually posted in my friends, like whatever WhatsApp groups, I shared with my friends. And there were a few people who came online as well just to test out my class and
Mm.
give me feedback. So I was like, I'll give you a free class. Just come and attend my class and tell me how it is, to give me real feedback. So I did that. And then I also had same people come to in-person classes. But then I had other people over the years, right? Because I wasn't new to
Mm.
Chicago and I wasn't new to teaching. So there were a few parents who came in with just like 3 or 4 kids, I think, came in for my first class. And this is imagine this is 2021 and it's like peak of
Mm.
pandemic. And there was, I don't think a lot of people were doing kids classes at that point. So this was something like, oh, like she's doing this, let's check it out. And then I gave a lot of emphasis on the safety precautions, temperature checks, mask. I would dance 2 hours nonstop with a mask on.
Okay.
It was extremely hard, but I it had to be done. And then limit the number of people in class and all of that.
Okay.
So then after that it slowly grew because
Okay.
kids were enjoying it and they shared with friends. And for me it was like, why does dancing have to stop in the pandemic? I should be able to safely offer in-person experiences for kids. And parents loved it. I mean, they were able to drop off kids and get an hour to themselves,
And yeah, of course, that's like
you know.
free babysitting, right? Or not free babysitting, but babysitting with some skill learning as well. But so, what kind of following you had at that point in social media when you posted this first time you are doing a class?
Social media, I was in the
Okay.
hundreds. Um, and I think very early on, I was trying a lot to reach out to, I was following certain influencers and I was like, hey, can you share my class? I would just not even engage with them. I was like, hey, share my class.
Mm.
And I was doing all of that. And some of them were nice enough to like talk about my class. If they had watched my video or something like that, they would share it. But other than that, I never had like a wow, like a growth moment on social media. It was very slow and steady. I would notice the times or weeks when I would post consistently and I would post more of just me dancing,
Mm.
I would get a lot more views than when I was trying to obviously like just promote
Mm.
a class. I started doing more of that. There's videos of me dancing in like a snowstorm in Chicago. Then there's videos of me dancing in the middle of the streets and like in front of some skyscrapers. And when in my travels, it's like I did everything, whatever I could to just keep the Instagram feed active.
Hmm.
But no, I did not have a lot of followers initially. It was like probably 300, 400, and then yeah, I'm not an expert on social media.
And was
But
this all new? I know you created Instagram account in 2020, but was this recording on YouTube and posting on YouTube, all that, was that new to you when you started it?
yes, absolutely. I had not even been using YouTube before. When you're working in a job, you also I feel like I was so into my own or our own world that you get so tied up in day to day operations and working on what's like
Hmm.
happening in that company. And I just didn't even think about this whole like building connections and, oh, going on YouTube for inspiration. It was all like happening
Hmm.
in 2020. I discovered YouTube as a platform as well as Instagram. I mean, I had an Instagram account, I think, but I didn't really post anything until 2020. It was just like a personal pictures or something like that. But actual dance content I started posting in 2020.
But how comfortable were you doing this, right? That's usually very tough if you haven't been posting.
Yeah, it was in front of a camera and you just have to pretend people are engaged and watching you. So I imagined myself in a class. So if you see any of my videos, I talk to kids like, hi kids. And I would talk to them. If you see
Hmm.
any of the kids' educational
Right, right.
videos on YouTube, there's so many. I started talking like that. And it was a little bit awkward at first because just talking in front of the camera. And Instagram, I still don't do a lot of that. I mean, in terms of talking, I dance and I post dance content. But it took some time, but the dancing and the teaching came naturally to
Hmm.
me, which I've been doing for now at this point 9, 10 years. So it wasn't I wouldn't say it wasn't as hard, but when I would see myself after recording, I would be very like, oh, like, how do I sound? This sounds weird. Do I sound okay? Maybe I need to change this. But then I think I just tweaked some things, but then I got more confident. So you'll also see my growth.
Hmm.
I noticed it as I started dancing more in front of the camera. I became more free, more confident, and in front of the camera. But even just the dancing, I think that my dance journey actually changed even from India to US. When I moved here, I wasn't this dancer that I knew I had it in me. Like this experiences and more dancing and teaching unleashed this dancer in me. Suddenly people were starting to call me like, oh, you have so much energy, you're such an enthusiastic dancer. I was known as a good, graceful, nice dancer, but the I was never known for this energy and all of that. So I think that kind of boosted my confidence. And then in front of camera, I took maybe a few tries, but slowly I got more comfortable.
But were you looking for things like views and how many views you're getting?
I was looking at my views and I would get very bothered initially that, oh my God, I put so much into this video. And before even Reels was there, I was looking at everything, the post videos, how many people are sharing it, how many people are commenting. I would get obsessed with the likes, like who's liked it? Why is this person not liking it? Or all of that. Everyone, I think, does that. But at some point, I think I stopped bothering too much about it. And then I thought I should just keep at it. I wasn't doing it long enough and consistently, and I was noticing that pattern every time I would post more and consistently. And like I would post some valuable content, like I would post a dance thing and I would like engage with people on stories, it would automatically get more interest or engagement. But yeah, initially, but I didn't do anything. I have never fallen for any of the get these many followers or
Hmm.
boost your views, pay this much kind of a thing.
What kind of content
Yeah,
worked for you and what kind of content didn't work for you?
the content that, surprisingly enough, I mean, it's annoying also sometimes that the content that you don't think too much about and just record or post
Hmm.
does really well, and something you spend hours on doesn't do well. But it can be I think I figured out some themes and I was trying to see what people are looking at. So that's something I realized doing my when I started my own business as well, that I need to listen to
Yeah.
what customers are saying. Parents are looking for specific things. So initially I didn't listen to them and I just in my own world, oh, like I'm good at this, I'm going to do this and keep going. So I started listening. People were asking specifically for more like tutorials, more like hook
Hmm.
steps or something. And so like those things I like started focusing more on
Yeah.
versus just I was sharing a lot of my like, oh, I'm doing this behind the scenes, but it became more of that. And so I was like, no, I need to share more of the real content, which is dances for kids. Maybe there are some tips that I can share. And then sometimes just dance, like just pure for
Right.
entertainment. You don't have to educate them all the time or promote. There's just pure content that's
Hmm.
entertained for just for entertainment. So that stuff I think really does well. Anytime sometimes my husband is in the video, that does really well. I've pulled him in for some dance moves. Anytime I collabed with someone,
Okay.
that does really well. I would do dances with my friends who are also a lot of dance friends in Chicago. Two of my really close friends are in some of my videos. Those videos automatically do well.
Hmm.
It's not just because
Yeah.
they share it or their followers see it, but just people love to see, the interaction and
Interesting.
the fun part when, multiple people are in the video. So yeah,
Okay.
I'm still figuring out
Okay.
what works, what doesn't. Social media is something I'm still learning and getting inspiration from so many creators that I follow.
So coming to your business part, you said you started your first class. How many people showed up?
I only put 2 classes out there
Okay.
because I didn't have a website, first of all. I had nothing. It was just a studio I partnered with. So I found this studio in the neighborhood and I approached the owner
Hmm.
and I said, hey, by the way, I'm in the neighborhood. And then I think it was like an Instagram DM. And I think it was them whom DM'd me and said, would you like to use our
Okay.
space? We have some free hours on these because they were looking to fill up their space, right? Because now there were not that many classes that were happening during the pandemic. So I said I would love to be able to do my class there. And then I did, I think, 70-30 split with them. So whatever class revenue, how many students I get, I would get 70% and they would get 30%.
Okay.
For hosting the class, they would handle registrations on their website, which because that was a huge thing for me because I didn't have a website. So how do I collect
Hmm.
payments and signups? Right? So initially I was like, let me do this. That's how I started. And then after that session, that studio closed its
Oh,
doors.
okay.
They were not able to sustain their lease ended or something.
Hmm.
And so they said, oh, we don't have the space for you anymore. And that kind of coincided with, I think, like a third wave, if I'm not wrong. I can't remember now the year, the which wave was it, like one of the delta or yeah. And then it was just like, oh, I'm not taking the risk now because people were just very hesitant to send kids to
Hmm.
classes.
Hmm.
Schools were not offering classes as well, so I was then just doing online.
Hmm.
So I started in person with, I would say, I think it was like 9 or 10
Okay.
kids. And then they wanted more, but then space wasn't working out and it was COVID time. I moved them to online. And then some of them were there online, but for some kids, it's
Yeah.
harder for younger kids to stay engaged. But yeah, that's how I started with a dance studio in the neighborhood.
So then the Delta wave came. What was next for you?
Yeah, I think after that it picked up in the sense after summer, and I people were ready to come back to classes. People were already asking me, those
Hmm.
10 people or 15 people, they were like, when are you posting the next session, when is it? And parents are always in that mode of
Hmm.
planning that 6 months in advance, signing up for your extracurriculars, signing up for camps, childcare, whatever. So that kept me on my toes, and I was like, I need to plan ahead. And so it's like a semester base that I offer. So I offer a fall session, then I offer a winter and spring semester. So when a kid signs up for a class, they're doing a full like 3-month program.
Right.
And there'll be like a bunch of dances and cultural content and perform at the end of the session. So then, yeah, I started approaching some studios in the summer and started renting from them on the weekends. It was only Saturdays to start
Okay.
with. And then I added a Sunday class as well in another
So what did
neighborhood.
you have to do on the business front in the sense now? How did you
Mhm.
take registrations? Did you register your business, insurance, and all of
Yeah. So I realized that I badly definitely needed a website. Now that I'm going to offer classes, how are people going to sign
that? Hmm.
up? I can't just ask them to send me Zelle, Venmo, or fill out a form. And like, I wanted to make it like official. So I actually registered my LLC in August, almost 3 years ago now. So and I just had to come up with a name. I didn't give it much thought. That was the name of my YouTube channel, Dance with Miss Priya. I said, okay, I'm just going to go with that. So I had to figure out a little bit like registering LLC in Illinois and then approaching studios. And then I had to figure out the website piece. So my one of my best friends, she's a
Okay.
designer, and she offered to just help me with my first website, which is my first. I say first because I'm revamping and coming up with a new look and everything, new website. So she like basically designed it for me, and we worked together in figuring out what should be there and everything. And it worked. I mean, it was ready, and I put up the registrations, and people signed up. I think I had 20 kids, something like that. And then slowly it grew. Within the session, people started reaching out and say, "Oh, can you add more? Can you add more spots?" And soon I had a wait list, because you can only I mean, with the younger kids, I limited to 10 to 12 kids in a class. So then I added more time slots, more age groups, and then also a new location. So I think I was at about 50, 60
Okay.
kids in the first session, and then it grew to 75. And then last year or this year, it doubled to 150
Okay.
now.
So how many sessions are you taking, and what days are you teaching now?
So I teach pretty much every day. I don't teach on Fridays, but I teach every day. And teaching actually is one part of my job, which is like I teach 2 classes in a day, which doesn't sound a lot. I'm going to all these locations also. Every day I'm driving to different locations, right? So when I go, I try to schedule 2 classes, or three, minimum two, sometimes three back-to-back classes. So my time going there is maximized.
Okay.
So I will teach 2 3 hours at a time. And then the before and after, of course, there's all the prep, the logistics, the customer service, there's like social media, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes. But yeah, I'm teaching like 15 classes a week.
15 a week. Okay, wow. How did you figure out what studios to go book, what areas to go to, and all of that?
Yeah, in Chicago, I mean, I try to look for a neighborhood where there are families, and it's known for it. There are surrounding neighborhoods, so people will come from different areas. And there's a studio that I knew before,
Hmm.
and I just looked them up, and if they're still in business, and I approached them. It's one part of the city, and then another part is like the downtown. So I don't know if you're familiar with Chicago, but it's a pretty big city. It's one of the biggest cities. I wanted to be able to cater to families coming from other parts of the city as well. And I had to do it on a different day. So I approached another studio, and they had availability. It's a lot about having that relationship with them. So now I've been with them for 2 3 years. So I have that consistent relationship with them. They would give me that time slot. And if someone reaches out, they would ask me first. So yeah, it's like an ongoing kind of contract with them that I have. And the neighborhood just works out because there are schools in that neighborhood, there are families that live. So I know now, by now, with 10 years living in Chicago, I know kind of have that experience that, okay, this neighborhood will attract clients from these areas. There's all more requests for other areas as well, like to expand, but that's in the works. And that's when my next plan will come in, where I have to hire more teachers, and that's the next plan, to be able to expand.
So, like, now you figure out families, now you're expanding to dance studios. Can you tell us how the contracts work? Like, how long do you have to sign contracts for?
The good thing is, contracts, I keep them for that amount of sessions that I have for classes. So, for example, my fall contract will be, it's seasonal.
Okay.
So it'll be from September to December. I'm committing to every Saturday for 3 months.
Okay.
And then we renew that contract again in December to start in January.
Okay.
And then again in summer, and so on. So when I'm committing to a studio, then I know that, okay, I'm going to commit to them. And so those classes better have the minimum amount of students, so that, I mean, I'm still paying the rent, right? Even if I had 2 kids or 3 kids, right? So I keep that in mind. And then I have a good relationship thankfully, with them. So that if anything changes, I can always tell them that, oh, by the way, that this class didn't work out. I didn't get interest, so I need to cancel this. But yeah, contracts, you have to read everything so carefully. It was also very new for me initially, because I wasn't doing a lot of that in my previous job, right? So this was something new. I was like, okay, is there something that I need to worry about? What happens? And then insurance and all of that. Yeah, it was just a lot of like figuring out. And then I also asked for help. I asked some of the people I have contacts with, like dance instructors, other people in the city who own businesses, that, hey, like, what insurance did you use in this contract? Like, what does it mean? And people are, happy to help.
Can you talk about some of the operational costs, the rent, the insurance, and all of that you have to bear?
Yeah, sure. So the rent varies. I mean, city to city, everything is different. Chicago, it's a city, but it's an hourly rent. So it can be like $30 an hour, $40, $50 an hour, depending on the type of space. And other than that, there are costs, obviously, like running a class requires props for the kids, costumes for performances, and then whatever the music speakers, anything else that I need to carry to teach
Hmm.
my content, I mean, teach my classes. I don't have the physical space. I don't own a space. So that's a huge cost that I don't have. But yeah, it's basically pretty much the big chunk is like the rent that I'm paying.
Okay. And what about insurance costs? Do you have to worry about
Um,
that?
yeah, I mean, insurance also depends what type of, but I think it's like I think I pay like something like a $24 a month or something like that. They have a monthly package, annual package. So basically, you have like commercial liability insurance, and then you're just making sure that you're covered that way. And then if you're renting a space for recital,
Hmm.
like shows, you need an auditorium. They have their own minimum insurance requirements, but that's 1 or 2 times a year. Yeah, it really depends on what are the different things you need in the insurance.
And what are the different classes you're teaching now across these studios and to different students?
Okay, so the program that I offer is basically a dance and culture class wherein the kids are coming in and there is a specific theme that we cover. So it's all Bollywood music, and I focus on some of the more of the traditional folk dance forms. So like Garba, for example, you take Bhangra, and I am more drawn to those styles given my classical tradition, like that background. And my personal style is also more inclined towards the folk styles, so I don't do more of the westernized hip hop styles. So in a class, typically kids are learning dances to Bollywood music. We use that as a medium. But within Bollywood music or dance, there are so many different genres. So Navratri season or fall season, we will do Garba and Dandiya, and they'll perform that at the end of the session. But there is a bigger cultural context that they get in class because we talk about the history of the dance and where this dance comes from, and then we'll use props. And so more than just learning a set of dance moves and forgetting that, they're gaining a bigger
Hmm.
cultural appreciation for the richness of Indian dance and culture. And there's just so much variety that they won't get bored. So
Hmm.
one session they'll learn this, then the next time they'll probably focus on Punjab, or we'll talk about Baisakhi and harvest and how that is important, and that kind of is weaved into the
Hmm.
dance form that originated from the
Okay.
farmers, right? So like it's all done in a very seamless way that I'll show them videos of Bhangra dancers in a
Hmm.
class, and then we'll simulate playing dhol. Maybe I'll give them some ideas to try at home, some arts and crafts. So it's like a very cultural experience for them. So that's what I think is exciting for them, because they want to be able to experience Indian dance and culture in like an immersive way.
And what are students coming to you for, or what kind of students are coming to you?
Sure. Students come to me for learning Indian dance, specifically Bollywood dance forms or using Bollywood music. But also they're coming for, like I explained, for the cultural connection or that appreciation, because these kids are born here, right? So first gen kids or second gen kids, even for them, it's naturally not part of their environment. So the parents are trying to expose them. So it's exposure to Indian dance and culture that they're coming for. And at that young age, 3 4 5, and then as they grow older, they're genuinely more interested in dance itself. So they're exploring, they're doing tons of other dance classes as well, so they're looking to gain more experience maybe with a different dance form. And so it really depends on the age group what they're coming for, but most of them are coming to stay connected to their
Hmm.
roots, which is Indian culture and learning Indian dance forms. But the interesting thing is that I am very proud of this, that I have kids, actually quite a lot of them, who come from non-Indian
Hmm.
background. So they are in my school. I go to certain schools for teaching after school programs, and there I have a whole mix. So for them it's a way to explore another culture, right? And dance is that very easy, very effortless, fun way for them to explore a culture. It's fun, it's interactive, it's active, they're getting energy out, and they're learning about a part of the world that they wouldn't have otherwise
What are the
in
different
their home.
audiences you're teaching? So you're doing your own studio. You mentioned something about
Yes.
school too.
So through my studios, through the parents who started coming to my dance classes on the weekends, they are the ones who introduced me to their schools.
Okay.
to their, because their kids go to schools in Chicago, right? And so why don't you come to my child's school and do a presentation on Diwali and teach them a Diwali dance? So it started like that. And also they want regular classes in their school because it's much more convenient for them to be able to go to a class in their school, right? After school, kids go to different activities within the school. So I got introduced to the one of the schools and I started teaching there. So I will go into schools and kids will already be there.
Okay.
So it's a great way for me to, I think,
You don't need a dance
teach.
studio and all that hassle.
Exactly. I have partnerships with school, and that's a wonderful way partnership to keep going because then you have so many opportunities there. Schools are doing so many efforts, like putting in so many efforts to recognize celebrations, different types of festivals. So one time I taught, I think, almost 500 kids in an assembly. That's very fulfilling because when you see like the impact you're creating and you see the kids and as well as the staff, like I had a principal dancing, like going all out and dancing bhangra and like smiles on their faces, the joy. And you're like, yeah, I did that. I was able to share my culture with them. And yeah, and then like that, I think it spread, but thanks to all my parent community because they're amazing. I was able to, I think that was important initially to provide them that experience, like delivering that experience to them. And then they come back for more and they will talk about you in
Mm.
all their groups and introduce you to schools. And then I also got some corporate events through the some of the parents.
Mm.
So corporates are doing virtual experiences for their employees for employee
Yeah.
engagement, and I was able to lead a little dance session for Diwali or Holi, I think, just virtually
Okay.
with some of the corporates over the last few years. I don't know if they're doing more virtual stuff now, but at least until 2022, I was doing some of those events.
So you started this and a lot of opportunities opened up for you, right? Once you started getting out there, that's how it worked.
Exactly. You have to put yourself out there and say yes to opportunities. But I think over the last year, I've also started being more mindful of where I'm spending my time. Is it worth it going that
Right.
that far for this event, and what am I going to get after this? What now? So I'm thinking more about like where my energy is being spent. Can I spend that on growing more, like starting more new initiatives, or can I spend that time in hiring more people? Because I am in the city, and if I get an event somewhere else, I will say yes because I'll be excited to do it there. But then what happens after that? Can I give them the services consistently? So yeah, I mean, a lot of opportunities, but I'm being more like smart about what I say yes to.
So you mentioned you had 10, 20 students you started with. Now you have almost 150 students. How did you grow?
Um,
What were the factors that helped you grow so much?
I think the number one thing is just providing like consistent, high quality teaching. Like I would just say that I focused on the in class experience so much that when the kids were engaged, they were happy, they come back. I wouldn't have to even talk about that class on social media because it would just get filled up by the current students. I was able to really personally connect with all the students, and people still say that, oh, like we want to come to your class because like my kid is always so happy coming into this class and me dancing with you and their friends. And so then they told friends, and then it happened very naturally and very steadily. So from that 30, 40 to 75, because I added more locations as well. And I was able to like be confident that, okay, this is working. I'm able to do this on my own. So yes, I'm going to add more. Started with 4 classes and then I added more. And some of them initially didn't fill up, but that's okay too. I said I'm gonna keep going and keep at it. And yeah, it just happened very naturally through completely, I would say 90% word of mouth and just parents sharing with their friends. Now it's sometimes I see 10 kids in a class and 5 6 of them are already
Mm.
friends from before
Okay.
because they've brought their neighbors, they've brought their school friends, and they've brought their siblings.
So how did you figure this
Uh,
out? Because you mentioned early on that handling kids, toddlers, and you still deal with very young kids, right? 3 years, 4 years, five
yeah.
years. How did you figure out how to crack this or how to engage them, make them happy? Because by nature they are very distracted and they just want to have fun.
Yeah, they are distracted, they have attention low attention span. So initially I was just focused on doing my thing without paying attention to how they're responding. But then when you see the kids, you can see, are they bored? Are they looking disengaged? So then what do? You switch it up. So I would just do like a different activity. Then maybe I will just make a circle with them and we'll walk around and we'll count the moves and we will use a certain prop. So something, you need a hook
Mm.
to get their attention. And when they're engaged and then they're connected with you, they will listen to you. And then it's at that age, 3 to 5 years is very like, as long as they're looking at you and following along, we're not going for perfection in their dance moves. We're not looking for them to even learn a full dance perfectly, right? It's more exposure at that age. But yes, as the age group grows, like you focus on more of the technique and their dance form. Are they doing it properly and all of that? So a lot of trial and error and a lot of practice. Just a lot of practice and observing how the kids are responding to you. And then sometimes the kids just need to talk. So at that moment, if you say, oh, stop talking, do you think they're going to actually listen to you after that? No. So we do this thing called sharing circle. So I give them 2 minutes to share whatever's they want to share. And I try to link it with some sort of theme so there's a direction to it. So if you're at a certain holiday coming up, they will talk about it and we'll make that into, for example, I'll say like Easter was just around like last week, right? Oh, what did you do? And they'll say something and then that'll lead to like spring. And then we'll be like, oh, can you make a flower with your hands? And then we're going to make this flower in our dance and we're going to make sure we don't drop it. So hold it and walk back to your positions. And then something to just get them to relate
Yeah.
to, and as well as get it out of their system. Like they need to talk, they need to be heard. So I think it's more like trying to just keep them engaged and meet them where they
Mm.
are versus where you want them to be.
Mm.
So it's, yeah, it's a little bit harder to explain
Mm.
theoretically,
Yeah.
but
No, I
I
understand.
hope you get the idea
Yeah.
that you just have to make it a fun experience for them. At the end of the day, what do parents ask, right? If you ask your kid, you're gonna say, did you have
Yeah.
fun, right? In class. You come back from class. So did they have
Yeah.
fun? That's number one. And then yeah, they learned something, but it's a process. They're not going to be like really strong dancers or amazing performers within a day or within a session. It's a process. But yeah, I think it was just a lot of practice, a lot of persistence, a lot of patience,
And
all of
what kind of investments you had to put in this business once you started? Can you talk about different areas of investment?
investment in terms of like you mean like financial
Yeah,
investment?
what was one thing that you have to pay? What are other things that you had to invest for in this business?
In terms of investment for like in-person classes, yeah, rent was the big one. And then just like class supplies, right? So you need tools to teach kids. So like we have these props that we use, spots and music or speakers or whatever. We use like specifically certain props, and that sometimes it can be a lot, like you need 100 pairs of dandias or scarves or anything like that. So yeah, class props, class supplies, and then of course recital. When you do a show, there's a whole thing like where how are you gonna, this photographer, you need a videographer. Initially I did a photo shoot to have professional pictures for my website, and of course website itself is a big investment,
Mm.
right? So that and then in terms of, yeah, but specifically if you're looking at class costs, then rent is the big one, and then the costumes, the class props that you need for teaching, yeah, those were.
Interesting. Okay. And now you are expanding, right? One of the things that you mentioned is you're expanding. So what is your plan with that? How do you keep up that quality and that the experience that you provide with hiring new people?
So that is something I'm working on right now to hire people. And so I think important obviously is to have like strong dancers, but it would be equally important to have someone that's reliable, people who are really committed to this, because this is being in the dance and arts industry. It's not something that is going to be like a high paying job. So whoever's doing this has not, I will not be doing it for the money. So why are they doing this, and are they going to be really reliable and committed? And so a lot of things like the dedication, all of that is very important. And how will I keep up is, I think, having a solid like training path. I Now that I have all of this experience that I have built over the years, I'm ready to share it all with people who who will be learning and also providing their own, adding their own touch, because everybody comes in with their unique style, right? Maybe they will be amazing at something that I wasn't able to, or I wouldn't have thought of. They bring their own style and personality into a class. And so someone who genuinely can like bring in their personality into class, but also be willing to learn, and like the quality will be maintained with the training and a lot of practice.
What do you gain out of this if you expand? You are already doing your job, right? You're teaching, you're having fun teaching, you
Yeah.
running your own business. But when you bring in other people in your profession specifically, what do you gain out of it? Other than maybe money a little bit, but what are the other things that you're thinking of? Why would it help?
Oh, I mean, I think I would just be able to become be a more of a business owner than, because right now I'm doing more of the teaching role and I'm so absorbed in the day-to-day operations, and that I'm just running around in the city and teaching classes. So it's a lot of physical energy that I have to be physically there, and then these are like high energy classes.
Mm.
So you're not just putting your body through a lot as well. But I have all of these ideas and initiatives that I want to work on, new initiatives. I mean, I want to foster a sense of community through events and some experiences. Right now, kids come to classes, they do their classes and performances, and then they're done, right? There are a lot of things I want to work on, so many ideas, but then sometimes I just don't have the time or energy. So I feel like I will be able to not teach 15 classes a week consistently for throughout the year, and have be able to expand to different neighborhoods with that new teachers. And then there are so many other events that come in during the weekend. I have to say no to them because I am teaching physically. So there are birthday parties, there are weddings and stuff like that, and I just have to simply say no,
Mm.
because oh, I'm teaching from this time to this time and I have no one else ready to substitute for me.
Okay.
So having that, even that one or two more people will actually enable me to spend more time on running the business but growing it,
Mm.
and having like different revenue streams, maybe, because classes are the only stream of revenue, right? If I lose the studio, or if I like, I shouldn't say this, but if I like injure myself or something, I'm down to
Yeah.
zero. So I need a backup, I need help, but also I need to be able to expand and say yes to more things.
Mm.
So the more I promote, the more requests I get, but then I say no. So it's like a circle. So do I promote, or do I just stay where I am?
Yeah.
Sometimes I ask myself that, like, why am I posting about this on social media? Will I be able to take on more?
Mhm.
So yeah, and unfortunately there are only 2 days in the weekend. So a lot of this dance stuff comes on the weekends. So events happen on the weekends. People are celebrating on the weekends, right? So that way it will free up my time so I can still find the joy and happiness in teaching, because I will still be teaching. It's not like I will
Mm.
stop. If I have four people also, I will still teach.
Yeah.
But then I will be able to grow that way. And yeah, I mean, honestly, that's the smart way to grow. And then, how long this is not sustainable,
Right.
right? So, and then I will be able to then finally travel also. So, me and my husband don't travel anywhere
Okay.
on throughout the year other than long weekends. But it's a choice I made long back, 10 years back, that this is a weekend industry. And so you are working on the weekends. Like out of 150, like 100, 110 students I teach on the weekends.
Okay. Wow.
So there's a very small chunk during the week.
Mm. And what
Um,
kind of events
so
do you help with? Do you create your own events or do you get events?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I want to do both. I right now just go to events where basically a birthday party, let's say a kid is having a fifth birthday party, their parents want to do some sort of like entertainment celebration to keep the kids engaged, like some sort of activity. So I offer a Bollywood dance party wherein I go in as the teacher and I will lead a sort of interactive Bollywood dance party. Kids are watching me and following along. We're dancing to Bollywood songs, and the parents, like, they're just like holding their phones up and recording their kids and having a blast. And then the birthday party ends with cake cutting or whatever. So birthday parties are one. And then there are performances in the city, like the Chicago is a very vibrant multicultural city. There are lots of events in the city that happen throughout the summer. There are performance opportunities for kids even, but I'm not able to sometimes just take them on. They're also happening on the weekends. And then there are weddings, where you go in to perform. So I would love to be able to grow a team where maybe we can perform as a dance team or dance troupe, right? Weddings, and then school events as well. There are, like I was saying, assemblies where you go in and lead a dance session for kids. Those are good because those are on the weekdays, and I say yes to most of the some stuff that comes my way. And then my own events, I haven't done my own events since I started my business, but that is the plan, to be able to do my own, maybe like a Diwali event or something where the community can come together, whole class community can come together, families can come and celebrate. Because there's nothing like, there are not a lot of opportunities for them in the city to do that.
So you have done a lot of things now, right? From the job,
Mhm.
you started your own business, doing almost doing everything single-handedly. What have been your major learnings doing all of this? How far you have come quite far, right? You would know that when you reflect upon your journey. What have been your learnings
Yeah.
doing this?
Yeah, I mean, so many learnings. I feel like I need to make notes of all the learnings over the years. But yeah, sometimes I don't recognize it, but I'm very proud of how far I have come from where I started with no teaching background whatsoever in India. I mean, just nothing, I had no teaching experience. I started from scratch, got opportunities, but took them on, made something big out of it, and then eventually started my own thing. I think I've learned that customer service is huge. Your customers are the most important people, right? You can market, you can do everything, you promote yourself, but then keeping them happy, and you don't have to go all out of your way, but you stay true to what you're doing, but then listening to them, making them feel valued and appreciated, and just, I think, staying true to what you're doing. Yeah, like, you are unique, so don't try to also compare yourself. So sometimes we all do that. So I think that I've learned. Initially I used to do that a lot, and then I was like, no, I shouldn't doubt myself, and I should be confident in what I'm doing. So yeah, I mean, customer service, and then your true your you bring a unique, people are coming to you for your
Hmm.
unique strengths. So there'll be competition always, but I learned
So
that,
what
I
are your
think
strengths?
my strengths are, I think my strength definitely lies in being that, as a teacher, definitely the connection I build with students, everyone, still, that's one thing that comes across through all the reviews and everything, that kids are really, like,
Hmm.
they show so much love and they connect with you. So I think that has been my number one strength, and that has carried me through all the sessions, all the ups and downs. Like, whenever, even if when we have done classes, people are connected with me and they're like, oh, when are you doing classes, my kid misses you. I know, I started talking about my learnings, and so I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm talking about my learnings. So then we went into like
Yeah.
strengths.
We can
uh,
continue with learnings. I think learnings as an entrepreneur are more important.
Yeah, definitely. So I think, as an entrepreneur, initially, I mean, I thought I had to figure out everything before
Hmm.
starting, but I would say that starting small or starting that time really worked out for me in 2020. And then you just figure out along the way.
Hmm.
So it's important to start small when you think that you've got something, and you will figure out, you will anyway have to figure out a lot of things along the way. So, and then that timing is never going to be right, and then, but it is important, I think, to be fluid and adapt as well. So just like in a class, I give this example that I go in with a plan, like, I know I have to teach this dance, and then, but yeah, sure, you're in front of 10, 12 kids, 15 kids, and sometimes things don't go that way that you planned. So you adapt and you do try something else. So the same thing, we need to have that very agile, like, mindset when you're running a business as an entrepreneur. Things, you just have to pivot, right? Like, for me, it
Right.
wasn't working out, I had to immediately switch from in person because of the pandemic. I had to switch online, and then I came back, some studio didn't work out, I had to immediately switch. And then you can't be like, oh, like, this is the end of it, so then I'm gonna just take a break. No, like, you have to always keep thinking, and then planning
Hmm.
is key. Before you know, it's already time, and then you're late and you're trying to promote something. So I think planning, never stop planning, right? So that is something I learned. I'm also still learning how to plan better and manage my time better, which I think will come. I get carried away and I focus on one thing, and then the other thing gets neglected. Like, for example, social media is an easy one to neglect, right? So still getting better at it, learning. So better time management, being more fluid, adaptable, and then just I think having really like fiercely believing in yourself that if you're good at something, like you got this, you'll be able to do it. Self doubt is natural. That happens. It happened with me too initially when I had moved here, but then slowly like you get more confident. It just comes with more practice. So you just have to believe in yourself so much, and then that's when you others will believe in you.
What are some of the milestones you have celebrated over your journey?
Mhm. Oh, that's a good question. Milestones, I should probably celebrate more, but I think the very first one was when I announced my classes that I'm doing this officially. When I announced online classes, that was a big milestone because I mean, I had no idea about online teaching, who's going to come. This is a completely different online community that I was just relying on, that they will come to my class, they will like it. So I think that was one. And then when I launched my LLC and I announced my in-person classes, when I like that's the same time I announced my launched my website, and then yeah, and then last year I think when we did the first recital, it was like a big auditorium and I had 400 audience members, and it was packed.
Mm.
And so I just thought to myself that night, oh, like I thought I couldn't do it, but here I am, and look how far I've come. So like that was like a really big milestone after the pandemic, especially like being in a large space, hosting a big show. And I was also teaching the kids, dancing with them on the stage, but I was also running everything behind the scenes, like all the logistics, the ticketing, the costumes, everything.
Okay.
So yeah, ever since I started, I would say
Okay.
those three would be big.
And are there any financial milestones you have achieved that you are proud of? Just running
Oh,
this successfully or profitably and all that.
well, I mean, I always think, oh, like I wanted to be like everybody else when I was growing up in India. Like I would think, oh, having a good job, having a big paycheck and home and car and friends and happy life. Well, I think I would say that I have everything now except the big paycheck. Because being in the dance and arts industry, that is something I think entrepreneurs, if they're getting into the space, they should know. It's not a high paycheck job, and not at least not initially. Just it is the type of industry, dance and arts. That's how it is, and it is gonna take you a while to figure out the. That's why it's very important to I think diversify your sources of income, which I am still getting better at figuring out the different income sources and everything. Classes are what I am have right now. So no, right now I'm not financially independent fully yet, but yes, I have grown from last year to this year. I've pretty much doubled what I was making, but then it's obviously like it's a work in progress. I'm in the process of setting some goals, and that is something I think it's very important to do in the beginning and keep track. I'm getting better at it. I wasn't doing it initially in the first year, and now I think I'm getting more like aware that okay, hey, you know what, let's set these goals. How are we going to meet them?
Okay. What
Is classes the only way? Can I add more stuff like
what's
that?
like your goal? What do you want to achieve in the near term future?
Well, I mean, I just want to be able to say that I should be able to leave. I mean, I don't have a number right now in mind, but if that's what you're asking, but I want to be able to make classes happen when I'm not here. Like I'm traveling and the business should be running, money should be coming in.
Mm.
My physical presence every minute of the day should not be
Correct.
needed. That's something I'm working on because I think that will be huge.
Mm.
Because right now that's what it is, right? Every single thing is controlled by me, from website edits to email schedules and social media and everything. So I want to be able to be in a place where I can sit a little bit more comfortably at peace and say, oh, this is running. And then I'm not teaching, but hey, this is still going on. And while I'm able to just take a few days break.
So now you knew you joined a job as a financial analyst back few years ago, like back in India. Now you're doing this as a business. Would you go back to any kind of job just because of financial more money situation?
Um, No, although I think sometimes my family will tell me that, hey, what if you had done that for job? What if you had stuck to it? You would be getting a bigger paycheck and stuff like that. But no, I think I there was no looking back after I started teaching. I think I had that moment in 2015 or something, which was like 1 or 2 years after I started teaching, that this is my purpose, or this is what I was made for. And I'm so glad I realized that early on, that I will do, this is going to be my path. And no, I mean, I don't even see myself doing anything else. It's, and then when I'm in class, I'm so immersed that there could be a tornado going on, there could be people giving away money, I would not care.
Right.
I absolutely love what I do, and I would not
So
do a job
actually,
just because
yeah,
it.
you're talking about something very interesting, and a lot of people struggle with this, like finding that clarity or the purpose of this is what I want to do kind of thing. And you said that
Yeah.
happened to you 2 years after you started teaching. What made you realize that this is it? This is what you want to pursue?
So yeah, I mean, initially, like I said, it wasn't there, because I was like, oh, like the kids are not listening to me or whatever. So initially it was just, I think it was one or two classes where people came out to me and they said, oh, you know what, I think this is the best dance or best outcome that has
Mm.
come out of the session. You're really good, are you trained or something? That moment just made me feel like, oh, I am good at something. Because I hadn't had that feeling in my first job. It was always like, oh, you have to do this because it's a job, and this was what pays the bills, and it's a job, everyone does it. So now it was a time where people were, I was being recognized for something that I was good at.
Mm.
So how can I leave that, right? What's more important than being like joy, having that joy and happiness and satisfaction, fulfillment every day of your life? And yes, of course, I would not be able to do this if I hadn't, that goes without saying, without the support of my partner, my husband. So I think in that sense that I had an extra support. A lot of people don't have that. So I know a lot of people have their jobs and do dance on the side until it picks up, or until they know that they can actually be financially independent with that, with dance as a, right now a lot of people have it as a side hustle. For me, there was no plan B.
Mm.
D- uh, Dance was always the only plan, and I think it happened naturally for me. With, I had to work, put in the work, but then it was just, it made me realize, as I taught more and more, I started seeing the influence, like directly I was able to see the
Mm.
impact I was creating on young kids. And I have like parents and grandparents coming to me after classes and saying that they are so proud of what the kids are doing in their class, and they are proud of their Indian culture, even though they're not, they're growing up in the US. And so you are helping them, you're having that influence on them. And so we appreciate you so much. And so those, I think, moments, there were a series of those moments that happened over time. And then I got more and more confident in what I was doing, and I was good at it.
No, I think that's, yeah, that's, I think that's the perfect answer, right? Where when you realize that you're good at something and people recognize you for that, I think that does the job. So,
Yeah.
what were some of the fears that you had to overcome in your journey, and how did you overcome them?
My fears as a business owner, you
Yeah,
mean?
as a teacher, as a business owner, both.
As, I mean, in terms of fear, I think initially it was like, can I do this? A lot of self doubt, thoughts of like just quitting it. What will people think? Will this work out? And then, yes, of course, there was a financial concern that, is this actually going to be able to pay my bills? And I think to some extent it got better over time, but then um, there was, in terms of business, I obviously fear that I will, some of my students will leave and move on to other things. There's competition, obviously there's like great classes that they can go to also. So I obviously have that fear sometimes, but then I provide something unique, and so that keeps me like really confident as well. In terms of, yeah, I can't say, I mean, I fear another pandemic or something. No, hopefully
Hope
not.
not. Yeah. What is your level of happiness and satisfaction doing this right now? On a scale, if you could rate.
Okay. Happiness, yes, a lot of joy in my life. I've got these little kids who come running to me and give me hugs. I mean, yeah, how can you be sad after that, I guess? It's not all days are great days. There'll be some days where things won't work your way, and there'll be some feedback that come in. I'm running a business, so there'll be like things that I will have to handle. But then when I'm in class or with the kids, I've been very fortunate. Even like their parents, the community is so amazing that in terms of happiness, yeah, I'm very happy, but I would love to be at a point where I'm satisfied saying that, oh, I am comfortable here. I am able to focus on the things that I want to be able to focus on, which like goes to my expansion plans, I guess, that when I'm able to hire more help. Right now, I feel very restricted. I can't just take off. Even when I had to go to India recently, I was scrambling to find someone to cover for my classes, and I had some friends help out. I still had to end up canceling some classes and offer refunds, which sucks for any service owner, any business owner. But yeah, I mean, I had to do that. So I want to get to that point where I'm like, yes. So I mean, I'm very happy where I am, very proud of how far I've come. So definitely say 8 on 10,
Okay,
if I can say that.
nice. And if you are comfortable, would you give us a range or just a high level view of how much you can make in this profession at different levels,
Oh,
right? When you start off, when you're a little established, and
I think it's like a difficult question to like answer because of the fact that there's so many factors involved. It depends on what you're doing. I mean, dance class, what type of industry? I think focus definitely on trying to keep that cost low, which for me, initially, I was keeping not doing that. I was just like, I need to provide like out of the world experience for the first session. So without thinking of the cost, I was like investing in class materials. Like I made these, I think we celebrated Holi or Diwali, and I got tons of things for the kids.
mm,
And I just want to make them happy. I'm like, who's paying for this? Where's the money coming from this? So I think just like keeping costs lower and just trying to keep an eye on your what you're trying to do, like expenses, because they can really shoot up by the time you look at the end of the year, and then that leads to frustration whether you even broke even, right? I think the first year I broke even barely, and then second year is when I started
right.
slowly. So yeah, unfortunately I don't have a range. It's hard to say that, but I would say just keeping that in mind, that hey, what am I putting in? Am I going to be able to recover that, and how can I provide still
Okay.
the experience without breaking your bank?
So I ask this in different ways in different professions, but an average engineer salary for someone in US is 5-6 thousand
Uh-huh.
dollars a month. Would you be able to make
Okay.
close to that?
So that's also interesting to answer because it's not per month, right? So for example, I have a huge chunk, for example, coming in. I would have like $40,000 come in over 3 or 4 months. I mean, you can calculate, but then there will be nothing for the next three
Mm,
months because it's summer. So it's like goes up, comes in chunks. So at the beginning of January or in December, I would get enrollments. Let's say kids are paying whatever $300 per session, something like that. And this is all public information on my website. Like anyone can calculate 150 students times that much with all the charges like card fees and Stripe fees and everything taken off. Then I offer sibling discounts and everything. So anyway, the point is to say that through for 3 months you'll get that much revenue, and you have that much cost from studios and all the other class expenses. So what you make at the end, and then that's what you make. And then for April, May, June, and July, there's nothing coming in. So you're relying on what you got to pull you through. So yeah, and then the way to solve that problem is to have a steady source of revenue. That's why you need to have
yes.
these other sources of revenue, private lessons or whatever, performances, events, and stuff like that. So it's hard to say like per month. Yes, you can do a calculation, take that chunk and put that across. But yeah, no, there is no steady
Yeah,
monthly
got it.
paycheck coming in.
And that's the nature of business, I guess.
Yeah, and it's not per kind of a per sale thing, right?
Mm.
So yeah, I mean, I don't do drop-in classes even, so it's like a big semester revenue that comes in, and then that happens 3 times in the year. So like a quarterly income almost.
Great. I think those were the questions, Priya. I think thank you for sharing so much. And it was really
Of
great
course.
talking to you, and thank you for your time as well. Good luck with your events.
Thank you. And thank you for this incredible opportunity and giving me a platform to share. I hope at least some of the information or journey that I shared would be like useful to someone who's listening and watching. I'm still learning a lot, and you just that's how it is. You learn. There's never a end to
Yeah,
learning, right?
yeah, definitely. And that's the hope, right? Share these learnings with someone, inspire someone else too. And
Mhm.
because everyone who is not an entrepreneur thinks, wait, where do I even get started? How do I get started? Things. I'm sure you would have gone through all of that. You overcame all of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I have actually learned so much by listening to your podcast episodes from different fields. Like you're talking to so many different people. And so it's so inspiring to learn from them and watch their journey as well. So, yeah, you're doing an amazing job of sharing everyone's
Thank you. I,
stories.
I yeah, I'm surprised. I have learned so much, and I haven't done anything yet, but I've already become so confident that yes, I can do. Even I can be an entrepreneur. I can do something of my own.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Priya.
These days, we hear a lot about learning to say no, but one key learning from my conversation with Miss Priya was learning to say yes early on to a lot of opportunities. You never know what door might open up, and this is a definition of a hustler for me. So, what did you learn from Miss Priya's journey? Share with me by commenting if you're listening on Spotify or YouTube, or you can reach out to me on pod.dhustlers@gmail.com or connect on Instagram at dhustlerspod. I will link the details in the description. Thank you for tuning in.